This episode of Marijuana Today Daily is brought to you by MJ Today Media, publishers of this podcast, as well as our flagship title, Marijuana Today, and the Green Rush and Weed Wonks shows. Visit and listen to the Weed Wonks over at weedwonks.com, with Wonks spelled W-O-N-K-S, and the Green Rush over at greenrushpodcast.net. Good morning, Marijuana Nation. It's Wednesday, January 8th, 2020, and you're tuned into episode 861 of Marijuana Today Daily. I'm your host, Shay Gunther, and I'll be walking you through today's marijuana news and headlines. As always, we have a full and busy day of cannabis news in our hands, so let's jump right into it. We lead off today's news with a chart from Marijuana Business Daily showing how beer sales tracked month to month in the nation of Canada over the year 2019. This one grabs the top spot today because the story told by that chart is not very good from the perspective of beer companies, with overall sales down 3% from 2018. And of course, this one's on our show today because it's likely that that drop was caused by newly legal marijuana, which was legal for adults of age in Canada throughout all of last year. This larger storyline is one that will color a lot of things in our overall industry, from new product development to corporate acquisitions, so I think it's a good idea to have a solid handle on it. Open this one up. To Florida we go, where Republicans have asked the state Supreme Court to throw out a proposed constitutional amendment to legalize adult use marijuana because they are anti-democratic, just like their entire party. The stated reasoning given by Florida Republican Attorney General Ashley Moody for the filing with the court submitted on Monday is that the proposed cannabis ballot measure would not inform voters that marijuana is still illegal at the federal level and hence somehow should be thrown out. Florida state law doesn't allow the Supreme Court to exactly assess the contents of proposed ballot measures, but it does grant the court the power to approve titles and summaries, which is the angle being pursued here by Republicans. I'm reminded of a good quote by David Frum, who once said, quote, "If conservatives become convinced that they cannot win democratically, they will not abandon conservatism. They will reject democracy," unquote. We wrap up today's news up here in Maine, Portland specifically, where I happen to reside, where yesterday the city council voted to delay a vote on how to issue adult use dispensary licenses until March, the same month when it's expected that the first adult use shops in the state will start to open up. We're now more than 3 years past when Maine voters approved an adult use ballot measure, which you would think would be more than enough time for Portland City Council to figure out their plans. But apparently it wasn't. The Portland Press-Herald is reporting that city councilors are leaning towards implementing a 20 license cap on adult use shops, which would necessitate some kind of filtering process. But all of that will have to wait at least a few more months. Swing over to Penelope Overton's story for more here. As always, we have all the news we cover linked to on our website at mjtodaydaily.com. Those are our top stories for today. It's time for Marijuana Today Daily Headlines Blitz. Before we blitz out on headlines, let's quickly thank our sponsor, MJ Today Media, publishers of this podcast, as well as our flagship title, Marijuana Today, and the Green Rush and Weed Wonks shows. 2020 is poised to be a big year for us here at MJ Today Media, and now is the perfect time to get your sponsorship spots locked in. Our advertising calendar is starting to fill up, and if you don't act soon, you could find yourself left out. Advertising your legal marijuana product, brand, or service on the shows that we create here at MJ Today Media is the best way to reach exactly the right audience. Most of our listeners are either currently working in legal marijuana or are actively transitioning in. Our audience is highly educated, high earning, and they spend a lot of money buying things online. It's basically a dream demographic for legal cannabis. We have options for budgets of all size, from the youngest of small startups to the most established and funded big corporations. Harness the power of podcast marketing and the best audience in legal marijuana today by getting in touch with me at Shay at mjtodaymedia.com, with Shay spelled S-H-E-A. That's Shay at mjtodaymedia.com. All right, time for the blitz. The Associated Press has an interesting story about a new marijuana technology startup that just pulled out of the big annual tech trade show CES because it's involved in the cannabis industry and was barred by CES organizers from talking about that fact. The kicker to this one is that the cannabis tech firm Keep Labs was given an award by CES for their new product, an internet-connected storage box for marijuana. Even so, Keep Labs was barred from talking about or displaying marijuana in any way in their trade show booth, which would seemingly make it impossible to attend. So Keep Labs pulled out of the show. A good reminder that there are still plenty of places where the intersection of federal cannabis laws and sensible state policy cause needless drama. Kyle Yeager over Marijuana Moments picked up on a story out of Washington, D.C., where the U.S. Food and Drug Administration has announced that certain kinds of testing equipment for marijuana is exempt from federal guidelines requiring manufacturers to make so-called pre-market notifications that their products are safe and effective. The move will make it less costly for producers to make things like drug testing kits for employment or insurance purposes. Kyle's story has more details here if you want them. The number of licensed marijuana companies in Canada with less than 6 months of operating expenses in the bank is on the rise, according to a financial analyst with Mackey Research Capital. Analyst Greg McLeish spoke with Marijuana Business Daily about his findings and how he thinks the low cash reserves will affect how those companies do business over the coming year. A good one to read no matter where you do business. Sticking up to Canada for another headline, we have an interesting story in Leafly looking at how gray market marijuana brands are starting to transition into the fully legal market. While less than legal brands come with the disadvantage of operating outside legal compliance, they can come with the benefit of having an established customer base. This is a storyline that could easily be applied to a lot of U.S. states, California in particular, so this is another one that I'd add to your list to read today. Hearings are being held up in Rhode Island this week by state health officials over a proposal to make permanent the temporary ban on flavored vaporizer products first put in place late last year by Governor Gina Raimondo. The current ban was set up in October and will run through the beginning of February, with an option to extend for another 2 months built in. Beyond that is up to state legislators, who are now being urged by the governor to make the ban permanent. We have another chart from Marijuana Business Daily atop our headlines with a look at how various marijuana business license types in Michigan have been capped by local communities. Michigan state law gives citizens and towns the ability to opt out of marijuana businesses altogether or to just restrict in number the amount of each license given out. The biggest picture that jumps out right away from the data is the near lack of places where it will be legal to throw marijuana-themed events or to use cannabis in a public setting like a bar or cafe. Better situated are growers, processors, and retailers. As with all Marijuana Business Daily's charts, this one has good background and context and is worth a look. Our final story today has us out west, where a new business model for legal marijuana delivery is catching some attention for cleverly stepping around local bans on marijuana dispensaries. The idea is that you install a large screen kiosk in a storefront or even on just the sidewalk where people can place orders for cannabis delivery. Very soon after customers hit submit on the screen, a nearby delivery service drops off their selection right to them. If the gap between ordering and delivery is short enough, you've effectively built a marijuana dispensary that's not actually a dispensary in terms of towns with bans on those kinds of businesses. This is an interesting one. Give it a read. Those are the headlines and news for the day. I'll be back with you again tomorrow morning with another information-packed episode of Marijuana Today Daily. But in the meantime, if you have any stories to share or feedback to give, zip us an email to headlines@mjtodaydaily.com. And while you're clicking around the interwebs, swing over to our website at mjtodaydaily.com to find links to all the news we cover. Thanks to our sponsor, MJ Today Media, and to all of our awesome Patreon listeners for the support that makes this show possible. To join the illustrious ranks of the Patreon listeners yourself, swing over to our website at mjtodaydaily.com and click on that big blue button at the top of the page that says Become a Patron. I'm your host, Shay Gunther. Thanks for tuning in and starting your day with Marijuana Today. Today.
One take, Shay. One take.